Usborne Illustrated Myths from Around the World. The Sun and the Moon. This myth explains the origin of the sun and moon. Nobody knows quite how old the story is, but it was probably first told in Korea thousands of years ago. There was once a time when the sky was dull and empty. There was no sun to shine in the day, nor moon to glow at night. Only a few stray clouds to fill the space between earth and the heavens high above. In that time, there lived an old cook whose rice cakes were known far and wide as the tastiest in the land. She would bake early each day and spend the morning grinding rice into flour, mixing it with water, and kneading it into a soft dough. Then she would steam it, filling the air with the fragrant smell of cooking rice. "It smells delicious," said Hasik, the cook's daughter. "Can I have some?" "Only if I can have some too," called Dalson, the cook's son. Their mother laughed. "Wait until I have finished, then you may both have one." It was the same story every morning, but it always brought a smile to the old woman's face. After the dough had cooled, the cook kneaded and pounded it, stopped when the dough was springy and her wrists began to ache. Finally, she tore it into little pieces and shaped each piece into a beautiful rice cake. Before the cook had even finished shaping her first cake, it was greedily snatched up by Dalson, who ate the entire thing in one enormous bite. "Hey!" cried Hasek. "That one was mine." But a second later, her mother handed her a cake of her own. When Hasek bit into it, she sighed with pleasure. "It's so good. Can I have another?" The old woman shook her head. "I need to take the rest of the cakes to sell at the market," she said, loading the cakes into a basket. "If there are any left at the end of the day, you can both have another." Hasek and Dalson glanced at each other and smiled. They knew there would be a cake left for each of them. There always was. So they helped their mother fill the basket with the freshly made rice cakes, then lifted it up so she could carry it easily above her head. When their mother was ready, she set off for the market. She staggered up and down steep hills, trudged along muddy roads, and cautiously tiptoed across rickety bridges. Until at last she saw the market in the distance. "Not far now," she said, wiping the sweat from her brow. She raised one foot, about to continue, when, "What is that most delightful smell?" came a gentle purr from behind her. The cook's spirit soared. "What luck," she thought to herself. "I haven't even arrived at the market, and already someone's interested in my cakes." She beamed a huge smile, turned around, and let out a gasp. Instead of finding a customer standing there with coins ready to spend, the cook found something quite different, something twice as large as a normal man, something with glossy orange and black fur, sharp white teeth, and huge yellow eyes, hungry eyes. "A tiger?" stammered the cook. "Not just any tiger," the tiger smiled, obviously pleased to have such an attentive and fearful audience. "I'm the tiger, the strongest, fastest, most brilliant tiger in all the land. And If you so much as think about running away, I will swallow you whole before you manage to take your first step. The cook's eyes darted left, then right, then back again, struggling to think of a way to escape. Meanwhile, the tiger began to stalk a wide circle around her, sniffing the air as he went. What is that heavenly smell? What tasty treats do you have for such a great tiger? These, said the cook, slowly lowering the basket to the ground. These are rice cakes. I'm on my way to the market to sell them. Then the cook had an idea. If you let me go on my way, I will happily give you one. Just one, said the tiger, with a mocking laugh. One now, said the cook, lifting one of the cakes from her basket, and one every day you let me pass through here unharmed. The tiger paused his prowling and considered the cook's offer. The longer he thought about it, the more enticing the smell of the rice cakes became. Soon his mouth was watering so badly, he felt he had to answer quickly or risk drowning. Deal, he spluttered. Now give me my treat. With the deal made, the cook placed the rice cake in front of the tiger. He eyed it suspiciously, poked it with one claw, licked it once, licked it twice, then took the whole thing into his mouth and chewed it delightedly. He was enjoying it so much he hardly noticed as the cook picked up her basket and crept away. When the cook returned home later that day, Hasek and Dalson were eagerly awaiting her. Did you sell them all? Asked Dalson, taking the basket from his mother. I sold all but two, said the cook with an exaggerated sigh. What should I do with them? I will have one, cried Hasek and Dalson in unison. With a nod from their mother, they reached inside the basket and snatched out the last two rice cakes of the day. They vanished almost as quickly as they had emerged, leaving not so much as a crumb. When the children had finished eating, the cook sent them off to bed. She still had to soak the rice, so it will be nice and soft the next day, ready to be ground, kneaded, and steamed. Yet all she could think about was her encounter with the tiger. I hope I don't see him again, she whispered to herself. The night passed quickly, moving from an empty black sky to an equally empty blue one. At once, the cook set to work preparing the rice cakes for the day. As usual, she gave one to each of her children before heading out. This time, the cook decided to travel a different path to reach the market. The journey was longer and had many more hills to struggle up and down, but extra hills were far better than the risk of being eaten by a tiger. After another hour of walking, she soon spotted the market in the distance. Ah, she said, ah, purred a rather satisfied voice, sending chills running down the cook's spine. She turned around. Once again, there was the tiger. I hope you are not forgetting our bargain, said the great cat, licking his lips. Of course not, said the cook, forcing a smile just as before she lowered the basket to the ground, took out a rice cake, and placed it in front of the tiger. I hope the greatest tiger in the land enjoys his rice cake, she said with a bow. She was about to turn away when the tiger cleared his throat. Ahem, said the tiger, ever so gently. I think you have forgotten something. I have, replied the cook, scratching her head. What could that be? Why, my second rice cake, of course, said the tiger with a smirk. Your second rice cake? The cook frowned, but he agreed on one a day. That was to journey along your original path unharmed. The tiger replied casually. This is a new path, so this is a new deal. The cook started to shake her head, but stopped when the tiger let out a low, rumbling growl. Reluctantly, she gave him another rice cake, then sped off to the market before he could change his mind. The next day, the cook returned to her original path, thinking that paying one rice cake was always going to be better than paying two. This time the tiger was eagerly awaiting her. Great tiger, please accept this rice cake as promised, said the cook, placing a rice cake at his feet. And the other two? Said the tiger, his eyes fixed, unblinking, on the cook. Two more? Asked the cook. But I thought the price for this path was only one rice cake. Ah, but it's a new day, said the tiger, and a new day means a new deal. Today the price for safe passage is 3 rice cakes. This time the cook didn't even try to argue. She placed 2 more rice cakes on the floor in front of the tiger and walked away. 3 rice cakes were nothing when her life was at stake. But each day the tiger demanded more and more rice cakes, and each day the cook had no choice but to give in to his demands. It was not long before she was struggling to keep any at all. Yet, whenever she returned at the end of the day, she would always manage to save at least 2, one for Dalson and one for Hasek. Then came the day when the tiger went too far. I won them all, he declared, before the cook had even reached his side. I am the greatest tiger in the land, and the greatest tiger deserves the greatest treats. By now the cook had had enough. There is nothing great about you, she said. You are nothing but a greedy, selfish tiger. You take and you take without thinking about how it affects anyone else. Most days I leave here with barely enough rice cakes left to sell. Now, if I give you everything, I will have nothing left to feed my children at the end of the day. Children? Said the tiger, his eyes growing wide. You never mentioned you had children. The taste of children is so much sweeter than even your delicious rice cakes. Leave them alone, she shouted, realizing she had made a terrible mistake. But before she could say another word, the tiger opened his mouth wide and swallowed the cook whole, leaving nothing behind but a scattering of clothes and the basket of rice cakes. Well, that was a rather bitter meal, said the tiger, wrinkling his nose in disgust. Then his eyes grew wide again, gleaming with mischief. At least now I know where to find some sweet dessert. With a wicked smile plastered to his face, the tiger collected the discarded clothes and the basket of rice cakes and stalked off in search of the cook's house and the children waiting inside. It's starting to get dark, said Hasek anxiously from inside the house. Mother should be back by now. She always gets back before nightfall. Dalson agreed. Something wasn't right. Their mother always returned at the same time each day. We should lock the door, he decided, just to be safe. It was another few hours before the tiger arrived outside the cook's house. Her tracks had been easy enough to follow. But along the way, he had been so distracted by his hunger and vision of plump little children dancing in front of his eyes that he had needed to stop and eat some rice cakes before continuing. I need to be careful, he thought. I don't know how many children are in there. I wouldn't want them to flee before I had a chance to catch and eat them all. He paused for a moment, then remembered the clothes he had collected along with the rice basket. Such a clever tiger, he said, praising himself while he put on the cook's outfit. If I look like that old cook, her children would come to me with open arms. When he felt his disguise was convincing enough, he walked up to the front door and tried the handle. He shook it and rattled it, but the door would not budge. So he cleared his throat and his highest voice called out, "Children, I have returned. Be good and let your poor old mother in." On hearing the voice, Hasek rushed to the window and peered outside. "It's her," she said, glimpsing the disguised tiger. "It's mother. She's come home at last." She marched over to the door, ready to unlock it, when Dalton placed his hand on her shoulder, stopping her in her tracks. "Wait," he whispered. "I don't think that's our mother out there." "It looks like mother," replied Hasek. "Yes, but listen to her voice. Don't you think she sounds too gruff to be our mother?" The tiger was starting to grow impatient. "Please hurry along and let me in, children. It's been a long day and I am ever so tired." This time, Hasek heard what Dalton was talking about. Her mother's voice did sound a little rougher than she remembered, but then the cook did say she was tired. "Prove that you are our mother," demanded Dalton, holding Hasek away from the door. "Prove that you are not just some monster trying to steal us away." The tiger suppressed a growl. This was proving to be more of a challenge than he had thought. He searched for the basket, then took a cake from inside and rubbed it across his paws until they were covered in white rice dust. Finally, he called out, "Oh, my brave boy, why would I lie to you? Please let me in so I can warm my cold and aching hands." The next thing Dalton and Hasek saw was what appeared to be a set of white fingers poking through the gaps in the door. "See, I told you it's no monster," said Hasek, pulling away from her brother and running to unlock the door. She swung the door wide open, calling out, "Welcome home, mother." Oh, for she was face to face with the tiger. Dalton pulled his sister out of the way just as the tiger's jaws clamped shut on the space where she had been standing. The two of them ran as fast as they could out of the door and into the surrounding woods, the tiger's jaws snapping at their heels. "Quick up there," said Dalton, pointing at a lone tree in the middle of a clearing. The branches were just low enough for the two of them to jump up and catch them before scrambling all the way to the top. "You think climbing a tree will save you?" the tiger boomed. "All you have done is trap yourself. Now neither of you has anywhere to run, while I have all the time in the world to come up and get you. You might as well come back down so we can finish this sooner rather than later." When the children refused to budge, the tiger let out a massive sigh. "So be it," he said. Just as the tiger was hiking up his skirt, ready to climb, he caught sight of a woodcutter's hatchet leaning against an old log nearby. He gave a wicked grin. Why should a tiger as powerful as I have to clamber up a tree when I can make those children come to me instead? He dropped his skirt and walked slowly and calmly over to the hatchet. Up above, the children watched the tiger slink away, unsure of what to do next. Dalton looked all around him, trying his best to come up with an escape plan. It's no use, he muttered after a while. We really are trapped. All we can do is pray to the gods and hope they rescue us. If they decide we are pure of heart, they will send a rope for us to climb up to the heavens. But if they think we are rotten, then the rope they send will be old and frail, and that will be the end of us. Hasek was terrified by the idea of tumbling to the ground from so high up, but what other choice did she have? She clapped her hands together and began to pray. A moment later, the tiger came back, dragged the hatchet behind him. This is your last chance, he yelled. Come down, or I will make you come down. The children ignored him and continued to pray. So the tiger lifted the hatchet high over his head and brought it down on the tree trunk with a thunk, chipping away a chunk of bark. The next swing was faster, cutting deeply into the tree. Soon the tiger was hacking away at the tree with a savage fury, sending chips of wood flying everywhere. Brother, said Hasek, struggling to hold on, as the tree shuddered and shook beneath them. Now it was Dalson's turn to be scared, but he tried to hide it. Don't worry, he reassured her. I will protect you. I will always protect you. As soon as he had spoken, a rope spiraled down from the sky. It hung there, inviting the terrified brother and sister to climb it. Sister, the gods have answered our prayers, Dalton cried. Now quickly reach out and start climbing. I don't know how long the tree will stay standing. Without another word, Hasek grabbed hold of the rope and began pulling herself up into the sky. A moment later, Dalton joined her. Down below, the tiger was furious. His treats were getting away. Well, then, if prayers worked for them, then they should work for me too, he decided. He clapped his paws together and prayed to the gods. Just as before, a rope spiraled down from the sky. Aha, he shouted up to them. I will get you yet. And he began scaling the rope, climbing higher and higher, until he almost alongside the brother and sister. Just as he was about to reach out one clawed paw to swipe at them, the rope he was climbing broke to shreds and gave away. Just like the tiger, it was rotten to the core. With a terrible yell, the tiger fell to the ground, where he landed with a thud and a groan. But the groan didn't come from the tiger. The moment he hit the ground, his mouth opened wide, and out flew the cook, gasping for breath and covered in rice dust. I hope that never happens again, she moaned. The children continued to climb until at last they reached the heavens. There, Hasek became the sun and filled the day with blazing light, while Dalton became the moon and glowed all through the night. Finally, the sky wasn't so empty anymore. Every day and every night, Hasek and Dalton would look down at their mother and smile. And every morning and every evening, their mother would leave out a rice cake for them, just as she always had and always would. Thank you.